So to kick things off, so I know you've written a lot about like Louis C.K.
Yeah.
And a lot of other like Kevin Spacey and a lot of other people who, particularly in Hollywood, that are going through a lot of these allegations, true and otherwise, or whatnot, and they're dealing with a lot of stuff. And I guess recently, Bryan Singer is also going through this, and I guess the Atlantic has written some sort of expose about him. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, I have not had a chance to read the piece yet. It published this morning. I didn't get a chance to read it yet, but I know that this piece was in the works for a long time. It was rumored for a while. I think like last fall, it was rumored that Esquire was working on a big piece about Bryan Singer, kind of in the
Mm-hmm.
tradition of a lot of the Harvey Weinstein stuff, where they were gonna have a big story with a lot of accusers, including people we haven't heard about before, against Bryan Singer. Now, I should mention Bryan Singer, the director of Bohemian Rhapsody, in addition to such past films as The Usual Suspects, several movies in the X-Men series.
Yep.
He directed the Superman movie, and the one, not the recent ones, the Superman Returns, which is the one in, I want to say it was like 2006 around then.
Terrible one.
There's been a pretty major director for a long time, and this stuff about him has kind of been out there for a very long time. There've been lawsuits really going back to the late 90s against him. Producers have sued him. There's been various articles written about it, but he's never been arrested or convicted of a crime, and he's never nothing's really stuck, I guess would be the best way to describe it. I mean, there was one time when sued him alleging misconduct against, I think, a boy who was underage, and it ended up with the boy basically withdrawing the accusation and apologizing to him. Now, I don't know. I apologize. I've not read the piece yet, so I'm not sure if that's addressed in there or not. Basically, like, this story's been out there for a long time, and the stuff he's accused of, there's a continuum of, with Me Too and a lot of the people who've been accused of things, there's a continuum of how bad it is. If you might say R. Kelly or Harvey Weinstein or someone like that would be on the end of the worst. And this is pretty close to that, I think. I mean, it's non-consensual sex with people who are underage. I mean, this isn't the kind of thing where he's probably ever, I would imagine his career is probably over unless he's somehow completely exonerated, but I can't see that happening necessarily. And as we saw with R. Kelly, I imagine there might be some like law enforcement investigations coming out of this as well. So, and you might have noticed in the Golden Globe when Bohemian Rhapsody won Best Picture in the Golden Globes, Bryan Singer was not there, and he was.
I did notice that.
No one mentioned his name from the stage.
His name was basically wiped from memory for that movie.
Exactly. Yes, I think he did.
Yeah.
Now he was fired from the movie a few weeks before it was done being produced, although he was still the credited director. So if you look at the credits of the movie, it was directed by Bryan Singer. So yeah, I mean this, and then the part about this was that this story was originally written at Esquire, and the two writers who wrote it are Esquire staffers. However, I think they had a brief statement which said that Esquire's editors and lawyers signed off on everything, but someone in the corporate structure of Hearst, the company that owns it, had killed the story, so they were allowed to take it to the Atlantic, and that's who published it. So,
yeah, so I don't mean he's definitely a prolific, person in film. You always see his name attached to a lot of the movies that we kind of loved growing up. So to see all this, you definitely heard his name along with Me Too, because I remember hearing it back when Me Too kind of first jumped off. A lot of people were mentioning his name as well, and I guess nothing's really happened to him thus far.
Right.
Piece like this, I mean, it's kind of hard now. It's kind of with the R. Kelly documentary. His name's been heard around for 20 plus years, but now that the documentary came out, I feel like there's like momentum now to actually do something.
Right. Well, the R. Kelly one, it could just kind of gathered everything in one place, and it actually put people on camera. I think that's kind of why it was. It was such. It was that was a big deal, and that was, if you were on Twitter, if you talk to people, like, that was a big deal. A lot of people were watching that, and that was I mean, the stuff about R. Kelly. I mean, that tape. I think that was like 2002, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was out there, and that was everyone has seen it. It was sold on street corners. Like, people had seen it, and they knew what was going on all the way back. And he continued to make music, and I think some people, a lot of people with some of these artists, they just kind of said, well, he had that trial, he didn't get convicted, and I can separate the art from the artist, or there's various You
Yeah.
know, rationalizations you
Mhm.
make. That's starting to be a thing in the past now.
I mean, he definitely had a large string of hits right after that, so that kind of,
Yeah.
helps people
Yeah.
put that out of their mind. But even before that, he like married Aaliyah, and so there've been stories about him like way before that.
Yeah.
He married Aaliyah when she was 15.
Yeah.
That's kind of insane. And then
Yeah. Even that whole Aaliyah thing kind of did a lot of damage in the music industry behind the scenes. Like, if we had Twitter back then, we would have known about it all, but like, we
Yeah.
just didn't have the social media.
but it never
So,
stopped people from working with them. You know,
Yeah.
that's the
true.
thing about me. Like even with Bryan
They're
Singer, I didn't feel like
just themselves at this point. So
yeah, even with Bryan Singer, I felt like it didn't really stop people from still hiring them to do their movies.
yeah. Well, if you look at like Usual Suspects,
I
it's him.
mean, if he doesn't lose, yeah.
I missed what you said.
Yeah,
Oh
you
no,
know,
you're saying like Usual Suspects? I cut out right when you said Usual Suspects. I wanted to hear what you were saying.
It's him and Kevin Spacey who both had downfalls related to this, and I mean that's a great movie. That's one of my favorite movies.
yeah,
Probably
that
not
is a
gonna.
great movie. That is a
And another
fantastic
was
movie.
American Beauty. I mean that's gonna. I mean that movie's it's about to be the 20th anniversary, and I think there's gonna be a lot written about that. How it's a
Oh
movie about Kevin
wow.
Spacey lusting after a teenager, although it was a girl.
I
Yeah.
remember watching that
That's
movie and feeling
so
pretty
crazy.
uncomfortable about it.
Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah,
Wow. Wow, there's gonna be a lot about that coming out, I'm sure.
yeah. I think it was the
That's
fall.
crazy.
So we're gonna.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know, man. I mean, when his name was coming out, when Brian's name was coming out back when Weinstein was getting called out, I'm surprised he got to, I mean, finish this doc with, you know, everything he had going on.
mm-hmm.
Or I guess not doc, feature film. It's not really
Well,
that.
Singer was. I think the story at the time was that he was. I guess he stopped showing up to the set, and he claimed it had something to do. I think his mother was sick or something, so he had to leave England and go back to America. But like,
Oh, huh.
and then they announced he'd been fired, but he was also like fighting with Rami Malek on the set, so there's a lot going on there. So
Right.
he ended up being fired from the movie, and there were all these rumors that like something was about to drop in terms of a story about him, because this was at the time that all those other stories were happening. But
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a loss. Someone sued him around that time, but there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a big story at any point. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then this other director finished the movie, and then it was just in post production, and then it came out, and it just kind of. I mean, he didn't give interviews or anything for the movie, and it just was. I mean, there were problems people had with Bohemian Rhapsody and problems I had with Bohemian Rhapsody, but like,
Yeah.
it wasn't that high on the list. The fact that he was involved, I think people realized he was fired, so I guess it
Yeah.
was.
I mean, really, for
Well,
me, it just really sucks that a lot of the, culture and stuff and that gets created that we love so much, and it turns out like all these people behind there are just such shitty people, and it's
Yeah.
kind of
yeah, it's terrible.
like damn, I
Like,
love
oh, I
X
can't even
just
love that
wrecked.
anymore. Dang.
I mean, a lot of rock stars too. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
if you open that
well,
kind of rooms, like every
are
rock
they gonna talk about that? The
stars,
rock star
yeah,
stuff is blatant.
16, yeah, there's a lot of stuff like that.
It's
And
I mean,
blatant.
I
They
think
get 16-year-olds and like their parents to sign them over so they can go on world tours and shit. And like they never got back. I mean, they might have got some backlash, but they still did it, and like it was
I
cool.
think the biggest fear when Me Too first came out wasn't just about the movie industry. I think it was that it was going to jump over to all these other industries like fashion and the music industry big time.
Mm.
But I haven't really seen it too
well,
much.
one industry where it did happen a lot was like food, like restaurant, like a lot of big
Really?
chefs, like Mario
Oh
Batali
yeah.
had a bunch of accusers. I mean, that industry, there's a lot of that kind of stuff, especially these superstar chefs that are like, doing bad things too. So, and I mean, there was a little bit of it with like Wall Street, and there was a little bit of it with you saw some in sports. I mean, it wasn't like I think, and someone was talking about this on Twitter. How they just announced the Baseball Hall of Fame, and one of these years we're probably going to get a situation where like some star player is going to have like accusations against him, in the period between when he retires and when he's up for the Hall of Fame. And like Kirby Puckett was my favorite athlete growing up. He had that happen where he got in the Hall of Fame, and then like within a year he got accused of some type of sexual assault. And I remember that was a horrible thing that just because it's a guy everybody loved who was this And Roberto Alomar, if he got accused by a bunch of women of giving them HIV, and this was in like 2010, and I think he got into the Hall of Fame after that. And I remember just not coming up at all. When he was in the Hall of Fame.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, this was it's weird because it came in. It wasn't in the current era. If it happened in the current era, it would probably be a little bit different. But yeah, I remember like one woman accused him, and I think a couple years later, the woman he was married to at the time also accused him because I guess she had stood by him at the time that happened. Time. Yeah, it's
that's illegal.
Here's stories.
She can't testify against her husband. No,
that even happened with Pete Rose last year. Like Pete Rose was in this lawsuit where I guess someone accused him of committing statutory rape, and then he gave a deposition where he's like, "Oh yeah, I slept with that girl who was 15," and that was a big deal. Yeah. I mean, Rose has had enough scandals as it is, but I remember he was supposed to be honored by the Phillies, and they canceled this because this came out. So
yeah, I mean, for me, I can imagine like if they really felt like turning over all these rocks and digging up all this past, especially back in that time period, I think like 90% of people would have a lot of allegations thrown their way and whatnot. So I'm surprised it really hasn't gotten to the level that people like really feared it would yet.
Well, that's one thing in sports. It's kind of been a pet peeve of mine. Is like people went so crazy about steroids, like like Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens didn't get in the Hall of Fame because they took steroids. I mean,
which is insane. Barry Bonds should, without a doubt, be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was
Barry Bonds.
Steroids. He hit the most home runs. I mean, he didn't. He was a great player.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how many steroids you take. Like, go try to hit a home run after you get juiced up and see how well you do. How many times
try to hit a home run when you only get 2 pitches a game and you can actually hit.
Right. Yeah. Whenever you got so angry about that, everybody's like, "Well, this is destroyed baseball's innocence." I'm like, baseball's never had innocence ever.
No. It's honestly saved baseball. I remember I got into baseball when Sammy Sosa and
baseball players have been degenerates for all. Like, if you read any memoir about any baseball player, like they were all degenerates. They're all just like the way they just they were.
Their trademark is chewing tobacco. Really, like it's like like you. That's what you remember is like them spitting those big old.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, Barry Bonds is 1,000% Hall of Fame. If he's not in the Hall of Fame, there shouldn't even be Hall of Fame, honestly.
I mean, but then because now we're talking about like the right now time periods, like a similar situation with John Jones, the fighter, UFC fighter. So he just got his title back, but he's got all this weird steroid, not steroid,
fighter has a lot of issues.
Weird. Yeah.
I mean, we want to
fighter likes the
professional fighter has issues.
Come on, man.
Whether it's athletes or actors or musicians, it's like we want, or even politicians, like we want to think that the people we like and people we're fans of are good people, and that the people we dislike are bad people. But it doesn't always work that way. It's not that. It's not that. The guy you love might be terrible, and you just don't know about it.
Well, because I was like, he was gonna be my favorite of all time, and then it's like, I can't even talk about.
Still my favorite of all time. So I mean,
you talking about
John Jones.
John Jones. I think he's the greatest fighter of the greatest fighter of all time. So ever. But he just ruined. It's just hard to talk about him because he's fucking shit up.
Do people not love Mike Tyson still?
They love him now. He's
Mike Tyson is literally one of the worst human beings on the planet, and he'll tell you this. So I mean,
he says he doesn't like looking at his old self.
Yeah, because he knows he was a terrible human being, but people were still in love with Mike Tyson and are still in love with Mike Tyson. So it's like
he's had quite a cultural rehabilitation for a convicted rapist.
Unbelievable.
His conviction still stands. Never got overturned or anything. I mean,
he's reformed.
Everything he did, and to see how he is now, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So honestly, like people, I don't know how much they care in the future. Like I know in the moment people really care, but then it always seems to kind of fade away in time when they start to remember all the things that they did do and like create and stuff like that.
Right. Well, I read that the Spotify streams for R. Kelly's music like skyrocketed during the documentary because it's like it's watching it, but they're like, I bet a lot of people were like, oh yeah, I love his music. I haven't listened to it in a while. I'm gonna listen to his music because it was in there.
They're trying to figure out like all the clues, because he left so many clues, you know, like all the little stuff that he would say sounded weird now. Like you would try to like figure out, you're like, oh, he's talking about somebody young there. It's so obvious. You're like, oh, that's gross.
Come on, if you try to listen to his music now, of course you're gonna be like, oh, he's a fucking pervert. But everybody knew this because
but you didn't. Like, but when you heard the song, you didn't think in your head at the time while the song was on that, oh, R. Kelly's writing about a 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old girl
right now. I didn't think that he was writing about a 14-year-old. But I didn't think this guy is a freak. Like if he's saying this stuff like in her public, I can only imagine the shit that he's really trying to do behind the scenes. So like,
yeah, that shit is scary. It makes his music kind of creepy as fuck, like scary, like like whoa.
I don't know. It's kind of like, for me, it's always with these people, it's always like, I always go back to like the Dave Chappelle joke with Bill Cosby and the rape joke. And he's talking about, he rapes, but he saves in that whole situation where he did all this terrible shit, but then they start to think about all like the good shit he did. And it's kind of like, well, where should you fall in, you know, in that situation? It's hard for people. And I get it. It is hard because you have a lot of memories tied to these icons basically in their fields. And I don't really know where we necessarily go from here, but it's definitely a time that I don't think we've ever seen before. So
yeah.
But we could go on this.
Time to tell. I'm sorry.
No, continue. You go ahead. I didn't cut you off.
You know, time's going to tell a lot of this. I mean, I think, you know, I think it's going to shake out, and some of these people accused of things are going to come back. And, like, I heard that thing about Louis C.K., and one thing I don't think I mentioned in the piece was that I feel like Louis C.K., there was a path for him to address what happened in his work and to do a stand-up special where he talked about what happened and was honest about it, self-deprecating about it, and was, you know, found a way to do it in a way that only he can and using his talents to do it. But it doesn't look like that's the path that he chose. It looks like the path that he chose was to, you know, change his comedy to be a bit more mean-spirited than it was. And
yeah, I think he chose to be the bad guy instead.
Yeah. Yep.
He's like, well, fine. If you guys want me to be the bad guy, then I'm gonna really make you mad. Like
yeah.
And that might be his path forward. I mean, for all I know, that's, you know, it might give him, you know, if he's. A lot of people speculate that he's trying to appeal, you know, to the right wing, and that's kind of what.
Yeah, they are saying that. They are saying that. I don't know how I feel about that though. I mean, I don't even know if the right wing really cares for Louis K as much as we say they do.
But I don't think they care about him. I just think that they want to have somebody that they can always kind of like latch onto and fight back and push back against those, you know, everybody else and PC.
Well, because Louis C.K. was that guy though. He was like, you know, like in terms of like top comedians, Louis C.K. is definitely always in the conversation before, you know, all the controversy.
I mean, like I told you to reach another show we talked about. He'll be back. He'll have a big show. If not this year, next year for sure. And somebody will pick it up. I guarantee it.
Well, he also does that thing where he sells his specials and other things straight from his website. So he has that distribution channel. He doesn't necessarily need Netflix. Now, he won't necessarily make as much money from that than he would have if he had a Netflix deal, which he had. But I mean, I'm not going to say I wasn't a fan of his or that he wasn't talented. I mean, he would do a new hour every year, and most comedians don't do that. Like,
no,
right?
Would do a new, and it would be high level stuff. And he did it for HBO, and then Netflix. I mean, and it was good. It was almost always really good. So.
Yeah, he seems to be gearing up for that again. Honestly, I really think he's gonna try to make a big comeback soon.
Yeah,
because he's out there testing jokes, so you know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. We saw the accidental special.
Yeah.
Well, apparently he was in San Jose the other week. You know, doing it again. So.
Oh yeah.
Not backing down. I'll say that.
He's getting ready.
But this is a topic, you know, we could basically talk about the whole show if we wanted to, because it's never ending.
For sure.
Right.